Alright, welcome back to E-Bike Reviewer, and today we're checking out a monster of an e-bike, both in size and in specs, the Eahora Romeo Ultra 2025. This thing comes with some insane numbers on paper. A 60 volt, 70 amp hour battery, 3000 watt motor system, and a claimed top speed of 41 miles per hour. But is it really all that? Or are we looking at a spec sheet that hides some key flaws? Let's dive in. At $25.99, the Romeo Ultra brings some impressive components to the table. A 3000 watt motor setup, a 60 volt 70 amp hour pouch cell battery, top speed 41 miles per hour, acceleration 0 to 20 in 4.8 to 4.9 seconds, torque 120 newton meters, frame steel, which isn't the best choice at this weight, total weight 223 pounds, brakes 2-piston hydraulic setup with 240 millimeter rotors, all at a price of $25.99. So yeah, it's powerful, but it's also heavy and makes a few compromises in areas that really matter, especially when compared to other bikes in this category. Let's take it out and see if the Romeo Ultra can back up those big numbers or if this beast of a bike is more bark than bite. Let's talk about performance. And this is where the Romeo Ultra brings some bold claims. Eahora lists this bike with a 3000 watt rear hub motor, peaking at 3800 watts. Now, on paper, that sounds crazy powerful, but let's be real. For a hub motor this size, 3000 watts seems a little optimistic. Most motors in this class that look like this, they're usually rated closer to 1500 watts, so we're keeping our expectations in check. And sure enough, the off-the-line feel doesn't scream 3800 peak watts. Throttle response is smooth, but not aggressive. You can tell it's got top-end pull, but it doesn't launch hard. Acceleration is mellow. Feels like it's pulling a lot of weight. That's because it is. In our 0 to 20 mile per hour test, the Ultra took about 4.8 to 4.9 seconds. That's not slow, but for a bike with this much claimed wattage, it's underwhelming. I don't say it's bad, it's good, but definitely not what I expect from a bike with such battery capacity and motor power. One reason? This bike weighs 223 pounds. That's more than some mopeds. But give it some road and it opens up. We clock the top speed at 41 miles per hour using throttle only. And once it's cruising, the power feels consistent. Once you're past 20, it actually rides nice and steady. Not twitchy, not loud, just a big heavy bike that keeps rolling. Now the torque rating is 120 newton meters, which is pretty decent, and you feel it on hills and launches. It's more of a momentum machine than a torque-heavy e-bike. We also ran it through our standard 1 mile hill climb test with an average incline of 12%, and the Romeo Ultra held an average speed of 21.6 miles per hour. That's respectable for such a heavy bike. So overall, the Romeo Ultra is not a sprinter. But if you're looking for steady speed, a strong 60 volt system, and enough top end to keep up with traffic on open roads, it delivers that. Just don't expect brutal acceleration or torque-heavy launches. Alright, let's talk about suspension and off-road comfort. Because with a bike this heavy, it better ride smooth. The Romeo Ultra rolls on a full suspension setup, with almost 3 inches of front travel, plus a rear shock rated up to 750 pounds. The first thing you notice is the ride feels soft. Not in a bad way, it actually soaks up a lot of the rough stuff. That long wheelbase and fat 26 by 4 inch tires help flatten things out. You've got preload and compression adjustments, which is great, especially if you're a heavy rider. But the front fork doesn't exactly scream premium. It's got the travel, but it's a bit noisy and doesn't feel all that refined when fully compressed. It handles light trails fine, but once you push it harder, that fork feels cheap. There's bounce, there's flex, and you kind of lose confidence at speed. The rear shock performs better. It feels stable under load and doesn't bottom out easily. But overall, this bike is more about comfort cruising than aggressive off-road riding. It is advertised as air, but it looks like those fake air reservoir rear suspensions. If you're rolling through city potholes, gravel paths, or uneven pavement, you'll appreciate the plush setup. But if you're expecting a downhill mountain bike suspension, it's not that. So yeah, the Romeo Ultra gives you that big bike suspension comfort, especially if you dial it in. But it's held back a little by that front fork. It works, it's just not the same level as the rest of this monster build. When you're pushing over 220 pounds of steel and battery at 40 plus miles per hour, good brakes aren't optional. They're a must. The Romeo Ultra is equipped with hydraulic disc brakes, but they're 2-piston calipers paired with 240 millimeter rotors. In our brake test, it brought the bike to a stop reasonably well, but you feel the effort. There's a lot of mass here, and 2-piston brakes just don't give you the kind of bite and confidence you want at higher speeds. It took 21.2 feet to stop. Decent lever feel, smooth modulation, but yeah, I was hoping for more. A heavier bike like this really deserves 4-piston stoppers. On the visibility side, Romeo Ultra does a solid job. You get a huge motorcycle-style LED headlight, bright taillight, and even a horn. The front light on this e-bike is incredibly powerful. It casts a wide, bright beam that easily illuminates the road and surrounding area, making night riding feel significantly safer. I'd say it's more than sufficient for most nighttime conditions, even on unlit paths or roads. But here's a miss. No turn signals. On a bike this fast and road-oriented, that's a noticeable gap in the safety package. Braking is functional, lighting is strong, and the Ultra definitely does the basics right. But we love to see 4-piston brakes and active turn signals on future models, especially at this size and speed. This is where things get interesting. The Romeo Ultra comes with a massive 60-volt, 70-amp-hour battery. That's a total of 4,200 watt-hours, making it one of the biggest single battery setups we've seen under $3,000. But there's a catch. It uses pouch cells, not cylindrical ones like the 21700s. Now, pouch cells can pack more energy in a smaller space, but they're more sensitive to heat and less durable over time. One hard impact or bad storage, and things can go south. I didn't test this like some guy in Pedal Assist 1 on flat roads. This was real-world riding. Hard throttle, hill climbs, mixed elevation, and no effort to conserve battery. I pushed the e-bike to its limits with hard acceleration, challenging hill climbs, and varied elevations. I rode it as any normal user would, without any conscious effort to conserve battery power. With that kind of riding, we got 40.1 miles before cutoff. That's actually a solid number for such a heavy e-bike and throttle-heavy use. But to be honest, I was expecting more. Here's the weird part. When I measured the actual battery capacity after a full charge, I didn't get 4,200 watt-hours like it says on the spec sheet. It came out closer to 3,200 watt-hours, which is more in line with a 60-volt, 50-amp-hour battery, not 70-amp-hour. So yeah, range was good, and I'm impressed with what I got for how I rode it. But with a claimed 70-amp-hour battery, I was expecting it to go quite a bit further. The power delivery stayed pretty consistent through the ride. No massive sag until the last 10% or so. The 60-volt system definitely helps hold speed under load. It comes with a single 7-amp charger, which is solid, but it'll still take you 8 to 9 hours for a full charge from empty. So here's a summary. Huge battery on paper, good range in the real world, but with some doubts on what's really inside. If that 70 amp hour spec is accurate, I should have gone further. When you first see the Romeo Ultra in person, one thing's clear. This thing is massive. The frame is steel, which gives it a solid feel, but it also makes it crazy heavy. We're talking 223 pounds with the battery installed. That's not something you can casually lift onto a bike rack. The bike comes in 2 boxes. The welds are fine, nothing fancy, nothing super clean, but they hold. You can tell this frame is built to take abuse, but it doesn't exactly scream premium craftsmanship. The seat is actually pretty comfortable. It's got that gel-style motorcycle vibe with a wide platform and plenty of cushion. But looks-wise, I'm not in love with it. It kind of clashes with the overall design. It's functional, not stylish. You're in a nice upright position, relaxed but still ready to ride. It doesn't feel cramped, and the bars are positioned well for long-distance comfort. Between the big 26 by 4-inch tires, full suspension, and that upright stance, this is definitely a comfortable cruiser. The ride is smooth, even on rough surfaces, and you don't get beat up over time. The cockpit setup is decent. The color display is easy to read, the throttle feels solid, and while the controls don't feel premium, they're functional and laid out logically. So overall, comfort is a win on the Romeo Ultra. The seat works, the ride is smooth, and the layout feels natural. But when it comes to build quality, it's a mixed bag. Heavy steel frame, okay welds, and some mid-tier components that get the job done, but won't blow you away. Alright, now for the stuff that didn't really hit the mark with the Romeo Ultra. It's extremely heavy. 223 pounds with the battery on, that's heavier than most e-bikes by a long shot, and it makes transport and low-speed handling a challenge. If you don't have a garage or ground-level storage, this thing is going to be a pain. The steel frame, yeah, it's strong, but it's also outdated for a premium bike. It adds unnecessary weight and you lose stiffness and corrosion resistance of aluminum. The pouch cell battery with possible false spec. It's listed as a 60 volt, 70 amp hour pack, but we only measured 3,200 watt hours of usable capacity. That lines up more with a 50 amp hour battery, not a 70 amp hour battery. Also, pouch cells aren't as durable or impact resistant as cylindrical cells like 2170s are. No turn signals. For a bike this big and fast, it's odd not to have basic active turn signals, especially when you're riding in mixed traffic or at night. Basic front suspension. It works, but it feels cheap. Noisy, springy, and just doesn't match the rest of this bike's size and power. At this price point, a better fork would have made a huge difference. Acceleration is underwhelming. With 3000 watts claimed power, you'd expect it to launch harder, but 0 to 20 in 4.9 seconds is kind of sluggish, especially for a single motor setup this size. Individually, none of these are deal breakers, but put together, they're telling you something. This bike is more about cruising than performance. And for riders chasing high-end feel or torque-heavy launches, this one might not scratch that itch. The Eahora Romeo Ultra 2025 is a beast on paper. 60 volt system, 3000 watt motor, a claimed 70 amp hour battery, big tires, full suspension, and clean styling. It promises motorcycle-like performance in an e-bike frame. In the real world, it still delivers a solid ride, great cruising speed, smooth power delivery, and a very comfortable upright riding position. But it also comes with a few trade-offs. A heavy steel frame, questionable battery specs, mediocre braking setup, and a front suspension that feels like it came from a cheaper bike. If you're looking for an ultra comfortable cruiser, something just to float at 35-40 miles per hour, and you don't mind the weight, this bike delivers that really well. It's stable, powerful enough, and honestly, it feels good once it's moving. But if you're chasing fast acceleration, top-tier components, or a truly high-end build, you might want to shop around, or at the very least, test ride before you commit. This was the Eahora Romeo Ultra 2025. Let us know your thoughts below. Hit like, subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next ride.